Transgressive acts can be defined as the breaking of social norms or moral boundaries. Transgressive acts are generally intentional and are undertaken in order to evoke feelings of pleasure and have historically been seen as a moral threat to society. A common experience in film and television is finding something funny or humorous. Some of this amusement can be attributed to transgressive actions, creating transgressive comedy. This applies to events, actions, and words that in other easily imaginable circumstances would elicit a very different response. This is a phenomenon that can be confusing, as our normal response to wrongdoing and most transgressive acts correctly does not include amusement. One of the earliest examples of modern transgressive comedy is the antics of clowns in their performance comedy. A standard facet of clowning is abuse. They push and hurt one another, hit each other with giant hammers, and even fire each other out of cannons. This kind of clowning made its way onto early television with the American ensemble The Three Stooges. The humor in The Three Stooges largely revolved around the various ways in which the ensemble could physically abuse one another. They demonstrated that transgressive comedy could be hugely popular in the mainstream, as they were active in TV and film for 48 years. And this kind of comedy can still be seen today, for example in Itchy and Scratchy in The Simpsons.
He grabs Kirk by the neck like that, see? And drags him over to the letterpress, see? Then he smacks him on the head like that. Then he pokes his coconut into the letterpress, see? Like that. Then he says, I'll squeeze the cider out of your Adam's apple. Then he gives him the works like this. And he keeps turning and twisting. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is...
From early on in cinematic history, films have used the technique of transgressive comedy in the extreme. There are many examples, including Kind Hearts and Coronets in 1949, where a man kills 6 people in order to ascend to a minor dukedom, and the more famous example of Monty Python, especially his Holy Grail in 1975, where mutilation and torture were used for comedic value in the famous Black Knight scene.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
I've had worse.
You liar!
Come on, you pansy.
Victory is mine. We thank thee, Lord, that in thy mouth...
Come on, then.
What?
Have at you!
As well as this, cannibalism was used for comedic purposes as early as 1925 in Charlie Chaplin's The Gold Rush, which includes a scene where a starving man hallucinates that the little tramp is a chicken and tries to kill and eat him. There are few types of transgression that have been left untouched as sources of humor in the history of cinema and film. At the heart of comedy is amusement, and the main factors that cause amusement are the unexpected, the inappropriate, or most generally, the incongruous. This claim that it is the incongruous that amuses us can be traced back to Aristotle's Rhetoric, in which he claims that the best way to make an audience laugh was to set up an expectation and deliver an ending that twists the audience's expectation. Aristotle's glimmer of an incongruity theory was given more light in 1750 by Francis Hutcheson's Reflections on Laughter, and more recently by John Morial, who claimed that we laugh when we experience something that does not fit into the patterns of our orderly world. A subset of incongruous events comprises transgressive events, events that seem to cross ethical boundaries. Transgressive comedy in TV can be scene level, where a specific joke from a scene is transgressive. However, Transgressive comedy in modern TV can also be plot level, where a structure is applied to an episode in order to embrace the transgressive nature of the plot. This structure starts with discontent, where someone is unhappy about something. Then, transgression with a mask. A character or characters transgress by pretending to be something they are not, or by lying about what they are, donning a mask. After this comes transgression without a mask, where there is generally a midpoint disaster and the mask is ripped off, and the character or characters are exposed. The next step is dealing with the consequences of their actions, and then there is a spiritual crisis where the characters reflect upon their transgressions. Finally, there is growth without a mask, where the characters come to accept themselves, as well as others, as who they are, without their masks. This is a commonly used structure in many contemporary transgressive comedies, such as The IT Crowd, where this structure was successfully employed across many episodes in different seasons of the show.
Hang on, guys. How can I help?
Well, we were just wondering, now that you're the boss, would you like us to access the data supplier and connect you up to the Matrix?
You just made all that up.
You don't know anything about computers, admit it!
Will you stop trying to undermine me? Now get in there and do some work to do with computers! I'll be in there in a minute to check up on you!
Many, if not most, transgressive actions, by themselves, are not immediately amusing. Finding something amusing is most crucially dependent upon the portrayal of the event, and how it is framed and contextualized. Returning to the Black Knight scene in the Holy Grail, if a person was to have all of their limbs chopped off in a different context, we would not find it funny. It may even appear gruesome and shocking. Another factor that can control amusement is whether or not the events depicted are fictional or true. If the events depicted in the film Kind Hearts and Coronets were true, and the film was made about a real serial killer, we might find it inappropriate and offensive that the filmmakers were inviting us to laugh at a light-hearted presentation of a real serial murder. However, in some cases, the humor at transgressions seems to become stronger when we know that the events depicted are true. An example of this is the hidden camera comedy, which is mainly used for practical jokes, such as in the television show Impractical Jokers. Our amusement comes from the victims of these practical jokes not knowing that they are the subject of a joke, and therefore showing the audience a genuine reaction to bizarre circumstances. In conclusion, transgressive comedy is an old concept, first theorized by Aristotle in Rhetoric. Transgressive comedy is one of, if not the most popular form of comedy in the modern day, as it is commonly found in almost any form of comedic medium. Our amusement at transgressive comedy relies on its context and framing, as transgressive actions themselves are often not funny. It is also reliant on the point of view we have or are given of the event. Something transgressive may evoke amusement only from a certain point of view. Had the same thing been approached from a different point of view or context, it may not be funny. It may appear shocking, unpleasant, or sad.